Hello, everybody in the US and all over the world. Welcome again to our Saturday lecture series. We're pleased and honored to welcome today a friend of our society, Swami Atmarupananda, a monk of the Ramakrishna Order of India, resident minister of the Vedanta Society of Greater Houston, and a renowned writer, scholar, and teacher. He joined the Chicago branch of the order in 1969 at the age of 19 and was initiated by the 10th president of the Ramakrishna Order, Swami Atmarupananda. He subsequently spent almost 14 years in India in monastic, scholarly, and spiritual training. For many years, Swami Atmarupananda was engaged in various pioneering works as the resident minister of the Vedanta Society of Southern California, San Diego, and then as the resident minister of the Vivekananda Retreat at Ridgely, Stone Ridge, New York. From 2012 to 2017, he was posted to the headquarters of the order in Kolkata, India, working on a new edition of the complete works of Swami Vivekananda in 10 volumes. In December of 2017, he was posted to his present position as the resident minister of the Vedanta Society of Greater Houston. For many years, Swami Atmarupananda has been actively engaged in interreligious dialogue here in the Americas and around the world, including international conferences on Hindu Buddhist dialogue, Hindu-Islamic dialogue, and the pursuit of a spiritual foundation for societies around the world. The subject of his talk today will be Sri Ramakrishna's bequest. Swamiji, thank you.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you, Swami Sarvapriyananda, and to the Vedanta Society of New York. I see many familiar faces. Few new faces, but many familiar, very familiar faces. And so glad to see all of you, glad to be here. And it's always a special pleasure to be associated with the Vedanta Society of New York, our oldest center. Not, as you know, the oldest in America, but the oldest center, older than Bella Math itself. So you have a wonderful, extraordinary heritage, wonderful history, and as I need not tell you, a wonderful Swami leading the society now. So you have everything going for you. And it's a great blessing to be with you and to spend a little time with you. So I always begin talks, as most of us Swamis do, with a chant. And until I chant, I don't feel like I'm into the talk. So I will give a chant. Om Sarva Jiva Papanasha Karanam Bhaveshwaram Swikritang Jagarbhavasa Deha Pashamidrisham Yapitam Swalilaya Chayena Divya Jivanam Yapitam Swalilaya Chayena Divya Jivanam Tannamami Deva Deva Ramakrishnam Ishwaram. We salute you, Sri Ramakrishna, who, though the divine being itself, took on the drama of human birth out of divine sport for the destruction of evil by living your divine life. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Om peace, peace, peace be unto us all. So as Diane has said, the topic today is Sri Ramakrishna's bequest. And so, of course, a bequest is something that someone leaves behind for others. And so Sri Ramakrishna's bequest is that which he has left for us, that which he has given freely to humanity, for those who want to take it. No one can force us to accept a bequest. We can reject a bequest if we want to, but it's a blessing for us to accept a bequest like that which Sri Ramakrishna has left for us. So I want to deal with what that bequest is. And so I'll begin by saying that no one can presume to say exactly what that bequest is, because it's larger than us, larger than our power to conceive. What Sri Ramakrishna did, we can see some of the things that he did, the activities that he did, the teachings that he gave, and so forth. And through his disciples and associates, we can understand more of what he did. But the great mass of what Sri Ramakrishna did was beyond our understanding. In fact, Swami Vivekananda said that Sri Ramakrishna had awakened this time, meaning in this incarnation, and he indicated for the first time ever, he said, this time Sri Ramakrishna has awakened the Brahma Kundalini. We all know the individual Kundalini, at least the name, the word. We know Kundalini, the so-called serpent power, the spiritual power that resides within each of us. But he said, Swamiji said that Sri Ramakrishna had awakened the Brahma Kundalini, that is the Kundalini of the whole universe. So what does that mean? I don't know, except that he has in some sense awakened the spirituality of the world. And that in time we will know. So what I'm going to speak about today is what is more easily accessible and yet of great value. What is more easily understandable and yet of tremendous value, not just of great value, but of incomparable value. And I'm going to do it by speaking about three dimensions of his life. And as a model, let me say, as a model, I'm using the Buddhist Sharanam statement that I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, and I take refuge in the Sangha. And so I'm going to use that, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, as the model for saying what it is that Sri Ramakrishna has bequeathed to us. And most of you are probably devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, but for those who are not, let me say that once in a while, I revert to calling Sri Ramakrishna Thakur. And so if you hear me say Thakur, many of you, most of you will recognize I'm speaking of Sri Ramakrishna. Those who don't recognize the term, indeed, that is who I'm speaking about, is Sri Ramakrishna. There are many epithets of Sri Ramakrishna that people use. But Thakur is my favorite, just because for whatever reason, for me, it is very familiar and respectful and yet very affectionate. And Sri Ramakrishna always told us that we should think of God as our nearest and dearest. We shouldn't think of the divine majesty of God as if God were some grand being that we are unworthy of approaching. No, God is the nearest and dearest. And Thakur is the nearest and dearest. Sri Ramakrishna is the nearest and dearest. So his bequest. First, I'll talk about his bequest as the Buddha, meaning the enlightened one. That is, the greatest thing that Sri Ramakrishna left is himself. That is the greatest part of his bequest. He left us himself. Why do we observe Sri Ramakrishna's birth anniversary? Why do we do a puja, offer flowers, and so forth? Are we recognizing that there was this great man who lived back in the 1800s, and we are honoring his memory and thinking about him and hoping to learn from his example, and grateful that such a great man lived? Not primarily, not principally. Certainly, we are recognizing that on his birthday that we're worshiping him because it is his birthday and he was a great man who did live. But we're worshiping him because he is, not because he was. We may remember a great man like Mahatma Gandhi because he was, and his ideas live on, but it's because he was a great man who did so many good things. We may have celebrations for great people like Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela and other great people who are truly great, who left a great bequest to us, and we recognize that. But they are people who were historical figures, and we remember their historical example. Sri Ramakrishna we worship, Sri Ramakrishna we pray to, Sri Ramakrishna we observe his birth because he is, because Sri Ramakrishna still exists. He has left himself behind. And so we can approach him in prayer, we can talk to him, we can worship him. One of the wonderful things about the act of worship, and of course there are many ways of worship, but let me just mention the traditional Hindu puja, the traditional way of ritual worship in Hinduism. When you do that for some time, and you do it with devotion, when you offer a flower on the altar to Sri Ramakrishna, or to Jesus, or to Buddha, but we'll speak of Sri Ramakrishna as representative of all such great living embodiments of spirit. When you offer a flower to him, after some time you begin to feel that he's there, he's accepting it. He's there and accepting it. If I ask you to pray to the wall, stand against the wall and pray to the wall itself, after some time you'll think, well, either Swami's crazy or I'm crazy for listening to him and doing this, and probably both of us are crazy, and you would be right, because the wall doesn't respond. But if I tell you, pray to Sri Ramakrishna, and if you have the beginnings of devotion and you pray, after some time you begin to feel that he's listening. You could pray to the wall for 100 years and you're not going to feel that the wall is listening unless indeed you have lost your mind. But if you pray to Sri Ramakrishna, after some time you begin to feel he is listening. And if you continue, you get signs in your life that he is listening. You begin to find that there are signs that he has heard, that there are answers to the prayer. And so Sri Ramakrishna left himself. That's that is of incalculable value, that the divine itself has left itself in the form of Sri Ramakrishna, accessible to us. In fact, that is the reason why God incarnates, in order to come and become accessible to human beings, to come and make the divine being accessible to us. In fact, it's sometimes said that the incarnation incarnates from the heart of God, from the heart of God. The concept of God includes many things. You can emphasize the justice of God, you can emphasize the majesty of God, you can emphasize the creative power of God and so many things. But the incarnation is the very heart of God, the loving, compassionate heart of God. And so it's from that Sri Ramakrishna has been born, and that where he continues to live and where he continues to be accessible. When God incarnates, the personhood of the incarnation remains in an enlightened state, in an accessible, enlightened state. Even today, there are people thousands of years later who have visions of Sri Krishna, people who have visions of Sri Ram, who pray to Sri Krishna, who pray to Rama, who pray to Jesus, and have the experience that they, Krishna or Rama or Jesus, has answered their prayer. And so Sri Ramakrishna has left himself as one more divine figure, but one who lived in our own time and addressed our own problems, the problems that we face. And so Sri Ramakrishna is, and he is accessible. He also left us his image. Now, that may not be the most important part of his incarnation, because other incarnations lived and died without leaving photographs. But the fact that he did leave photographs means that he is real in a special way. In this day today, when we want evidence of the existence of something, when we want evidence of the proof of something, Sri Ramakrishna has left not a photograph, but 3 photographs, plus that famous painting, which a devotee of Eastern European devotee of Swami Atmarupananda made after having the vision of Sri Ramakrishna. And so in a sense, we have 4 photographs, 3 of the actual 3 photographs and 1 painting of the living Sri Ramakrishna. So he left his image. Why is that important, besides the fact of evidence that he lived? His Holy Mother used to say that, that the chaya, Bengali or Sanskrit term really, but she was speaking Bengali, the chaya, that is the shadow, is the same as the kaya, as the body. The chaya, kaya, ak. The shadow and the body are the same. Meaning, by shadow, she meant the photograph. And so in the photograph, we can come to more easily feel the presence of Sri Ramakrishna. We can more easily we can see him, we can visualize him as he actually was. We don't have to make up some creative image of what he might have looked like. We see what he actually looked like, with the faith that that image of Sri Ramakrishna has become associated in the divine mind indelibly with the enlightened state of Sri Ramakrishna. The image represents the enlightened state of Sri Ramakrishna, the enlightened being of Sri Ramakrishna, which is beyond form, beyond conception. And yet that image is associated with that state. Swami Vijnanananda, one of the great disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, he said, you can't imagine what it is we see, meaning we, the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, what we see when we look at the photograph of Sri Ramakrishna. You can't imagine what we see. And so by looking at the picture itself, we are blessed. When we find that meditation is difficult, we close our eyes and the mind is a mass of jumbled thoughts, and we can't get those thoughts out of our head. Then open your eyes. Look at the photograph of Sri Ramakrishna, or the photograph of Holy Mother, or Swami Vivekananda. And there you have in front of you the image, embedded, imprinted permanently in the cosmic mind of enlightenment, the image of spirituality. Sri Ramakrishna's image, when we first come across it, often looks strange. It looks peculiar, especially to Westerners, maybe not so much to those of Indian origin, but to Westerners, when we first see the picture of Sri Ramakrishna, he looks a little peculiar. First of all, of course, he's only half dressed. He forgot his shirt and he forgot his tie. And then he has this abstracted look on his face, like you're not sure if he's really there. But in time, that picture, which at first looked a little peculiar to us, and then they go, I don't know about this, this man. It comes to express infinite beauty to us, not Hollywood beauty, and that's important. Not Hollywood beauty. We don't look at Sri Ramakrishna because he had such lovely curls growing down his face, and a beautiful complexion, and beautiful formation, and striking a noble pose for the camera and everything. No, we don't see Hollywood beauty. And so we begin to see real beauty when we look at the image of Sri Ramakrishna, the spiritual beauty that shines through, which is not at first evident. And so when we begin to see that, then we know that we are growing in devotion, because that's not accessible to the ordinary eyes. When we look at him and feel, he is my own, he's my own, he is my ideal, he's that towards which my whole life is aimed, then we know that we are beginning to grow in devotion. So he left his image. He also left his name. The name of every incarnation is itself a mantra. Yes, when we receive mantra initiation, mantra diksha, we get the name of the chosen ideal plus a bija mantra, and that's very good. That's very important. That's a great blessing. But the name Ramakrishna itself is a mantra, is a name of power. Just like in the Christian tradition, the Eastern Orthodox, they have the idea of of doing japa, repetition of the name of Jesus, or repetition of a phrase phrase containing the name of Jesus. They repeat it over and over as we repeat a mantra. They don't have a bija in that, and yet they have the effect of mantra practice by reciting that name of Jesus over and over again. Why? Because the name of an incarnation is a mantra, just as the image of Sri Ramakrishna is printed in the divine mind, in the cosmic mind, as an image of the highest state of enlightenment. The name Ramakrishna also is imprinted in the same way in the divine mind as a name expressing spirituality. Again, as Holy Mother used to say, she said, Nam Nami Abhed, that the name and the one named are not different. The name and the one named are the same. So Sri Ramakrishna is the same as his name. You know, there's a wonderful thing I read in a book many years ago. A Greek man who went to Mount Athos, the peninsula off of Greece, that's a monastic peninsula where only monks live. He traveled there, I believe it was in the late 50s. Yes, I'm pretty sure it was the late 50s, at the latest, the early 60s, because I read it in the late 60s. He said that he went to a Russian monastery on Mount Athos at a time, of course, of the Soviet Union. So the monks who lived in this Russian monastery had come there before the revolution. That is, the last of them had come in 1916. So they were all old men. And one of them told him that in his monastery they taught that the name of Jesus and Jesus are the same, that the name of Jesus is Jesus himself. You don't get that by thinking. That's not a rational conclusion. You get that from realization. And so they had realized that the name of Jesus and Jesus were the same. And so the name of Ramakrishna itself embodies Sri Ramakrishna. So he left his image, he left his name, and he left an image and a name and an example of his life of one who is Sarva Deva Devi Swarupa, the embodiment of all gods and goddesses. What does that mean? What about for a person who doesn't believe in gods and goddesses? Well, there's just God. Why bring up gods and goddesses? Well, what that means in a larger sense, I believe it means all the gods and goddesses also, but it as well means one who is the embodiment of all spiritual ideals, the embodiment of all spiritual ideals. Before Sri Ramakrishna was born, his mother saw countless, every day she said, she would see deities coming to her and bowing in adoration before her as the one who was carrying this special child. She didn't quite understand who it was she was carrying, but she knew the special nature of the child and that he was a divine gift. And part of the way she knew it, from other experiences also, but part of the way was by the fact that all of these gods and goddesses would come and bow before her. She said some of them she recognized, having seen them in art, calendars, and so forth, and heard tales of them in the Hindu lore. Others, she said, she had never seen nor heard of before. So it's my conviction that the spiritual ideals of other religions also came and paid their respects to her, because Sri Ramakrishna embodied the ideals of all spirituality, not just of Hinduism. Of Hinduism, yes, but not just of Hinduism. He was the embodiment of all spiritual ideals. And yet, though he led an ideal life, everything in his life has meaning for us. So that also we have to remember, everything in his life had meaning for us. Everything that he did had meaning for us. Now you'll hear people say, and rightly so, they'll say, that, well, Sri Ramakrishna was Sri Ramakrishna, you can't imitate him. Well, yes, no, we can't imitate his exact actions. And yet everything that he did, everything that he said has meaning for us today. And that as we go in the spiritual life, we find things that seem to apply only to an incarnation. We begin to find that even those things have shadows in our own life. In our own little way, those things begin to have meaning to us in the leading of our own life. And so That is a wonderful thing that he gave an example, a detailed example, where every aspect has meaning for us. For instance, Sri Ramakrishna, everything that he needed in his life, it came to him unsought. If he needed a teacher for a particular discipline, the teacher suddenly appeared. When he wanted to have a place to practice discipline and solitude, then on the bank of the Ganges, a load of wood and other building supplies just washed up on the bank. Now that doesn't happen to most of us. And yet in a way that has deep meaning to us also, because whatever Sri Ramakrishna needed, the Divine Mother supplied. But the same is true for us. Whatever we need is supplied also. It's just that we have exaggerated ideas of what our needs are. I need a new Lexus. Where is it? Where is it? It's not washing up on the shore of the Gulf of Mexico. I'm still waiting. Where is my Lexus? Oh no, I don't need a Lexus. And so, but the things that I do need, not the things that I think I need, not the things that I want, but the things that I do need come to me. And so if we have that deep faith, and faith based and reinforced on by the life of Sri Ramakrishna, then we find that the things that do come to me, I begin to realize these are the things I need. If it doesn't come to me, I don't really need it. If it does come to me, even if it's something I didn't want, for some reason I need it. There's something there that I need to work with, something there I need to face. Even if it's learning to say no to something. It comes to, sometimes things come to us just because we need to learn to say no to it. But that also comes to us because we need it, because we need to learn that. And other things come to us in various forms because there's some deep inner need which is being fulfilled by the experiences that come to us. So Sri Ramakrishna also, besides leaving himself, he gave us the Holy Mother, he gave us Swami Vivekananda, and he gave us the direct disciples. Such a wonderful richness and treasure that he gave to us that is for our own enlightenment. And I could go on speaking about things about himself that he gave, including Holy Mother and the direct disciples. They are part of himself. As he was part of them, they were part of himself. And so there are other things that could be said, but let me move to the Dharma. Again, Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. I take refuge in the Buddha. So I take refuge in Sri Ramakrishna. Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami. I take refuge in his Dharma and the path that he has shown, in his teaching, in the truths that he has manifested. And so what's called Pranama Mantra, the verse which is said in salutation to Sri Ramakrishna, which we use often, that Stapakaya cha dharmasya sarva dharma swarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. It was written by Swami Vivekananda. He calls Sri Ramakrishna at the beginning Stapakaya cha dharmasya, the establisher of Dharma. The establisher of Dharma can't really be translated into English because it's a much bigger term than any single term that we have. Sometimes it's translated as religion, sometimes it's translated as morality, sometimes it's translated as righteousness, sometimes it's translated as truth. But it means all of that and much more. But the one who established spiritual truth in an age when spiritual truth had been forgotten. And even in our own day, there are signs of the awakening of spirituality around the world. And yet, by and large, we find that spirituality has been forgotten. So he was born to awaken spirituality, to revivify the spiritual path. And though there are several meanings, and there's not time to go into all of them, and some of them are beyond our understanding, but though there are several significances to the fact that Sri Ramakrishna realized God through different paths, different Hindu paths as well as non-Hindu paths, like Christianity and Islam, my own conviction is that part of the reason why he did that was not just to teach the harmony of all religious ideas. Yes, that was true. But it was to revivify spirituality all over the world, to illustrate the reality of spiritual truth for the followers of religions all over the world. And he was the Stapakaya to Dharmasya, the one who established Stapaka Dharmasya, the one who established spirituality. He is, as Swami Vivekananda said, he is our Veda. He is our scripture. Yes, the Veda remains, the Bible remains, the Quran remains, but Sri Ramakrishna is our new Veda also. Some other disciples of Sri Ramakrishna used to say that Sri Ramakrishna was the Veda and Swami Vivekananda was the commentary of the Veda. That's a very beautiful way of thinking of the two of them. But Sri Ramakrishna is Veda, as Swami Vivekananda explained Veda. He said that the Veda, by Veda, no books are meant. Now, Swami Vivekananda had great respect for the books called the Vedas, and he advocated their study. But, in fact, he said that Belar Mutt would become a great Vedic university at some point. But he said that by Veda, essentially, no books are meant because infinite truth cannot be confined within the covers of a book. Infinite truth is larger than any library that could be conceived of. That truth is infinite. And so Veda means the repository of all spiritual truths. And so Sri Ramakrishna was that. The extraordinary realizations he had, the extraordinary spiritual experiences from all standpoints of spiritual life. So he is Veda. He lived, as Swami Vivekananda said, in his one short life of 50 years, Sri Ramakrishna lived the whole history of spiritual India, the whole history of spiritual India. He lived in his one short life. So as also part of his Dharma, he left the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna and the Great Master, the Lila Prasanga and the Kathamrita in the original language, the language of Bengali. The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna and the Lila Prasanga, the most detailed account that we have in any religion of the teachings and life of an incarnation. So for the first time, we can see the intimate details of the life of Sri Ramakrishna. So that is part of the Dharma which he left. Some of the details of the Dharma which he left to us, the path which he left to us, the teaching about the path of spirituality that he left to us, and just a few that I'll mention quickly, because the teachings he left were infinite in number. But one thing that he exemplified was what has been called Vyakulata Yoga. Vyakulata means longing. And so he left the example of Vyakulata Yoga. He said that if one has sufficient longing for God, that's all you need. Even in the absence of a guru, if you have sufficient longing, God itself, herself, himself will become your guru. One thing that's overlooked in the study of Christian mysticism is that many of the great Christian saints, they had a teacher who came and told them something, and suddenly their spiritual life took off. And others who didn't have a spiritual teacher, like St. Francis of Assisi, God himself or Christ himself appeared to them and told them something, and then their spiritual life took off, like the experience St. Francis of Assisi had in front of the crucifix in St. Damian's church in Assisi, where the crucifix spoke to him, and then his spiritual life began to take off. So through longing itself, one can attain everything, even awaken the teacher in God who comes to us and gives us instruction in the absence of a human teacher. And so Vyakulata Yoga, that is sufficient unto itself if we have it sufficient. He lived a life of utter truthfulness and used to say that truthfulness is the tapasya, the practice, the foundation of practice of the Kali Yuga, of the present age. that if you are truthful, he said that his disciple Girish Chandra Ghosh, the famous libertine that we all know and love, that he was saved by truthfulness alone. He had nothing else but utter sincerity and truthfulness, and that is what saved him. And so truthfulness, Sri Ramakrishna said, if you have that, you have everything. So he made spirituality easy. If you develop longing, if you don't have longing, if we don't have longing, we can learn to develop it. If we don't have truthfulness, we know what it is and we can practice it. And that itself will lead us to spirituality. Another aspect, of course, of his Dharma is Jato mat tato pat. As many faiths, so many paths. As many faiths, so many paths. What a wonderful statement. And just that simple statement in Bengali, just 4 words, not many more in English. As many faiths, so many paths. 6 words in English, 4 in Bengali. The essence of religious liberalism. We can, for the first time in religious history, we can just learn to leave people alone in religion. You have your path, I have my path. I don't have to convert you to my path in order to make myself feel good and in order to make myself feel justified that I'm insecure in my own faith, so I have to force you to believe like I do, and then I will feel better about myself. No, I don't need to do that. We're all seeking the same truth. Even the person who is not at all interested in religion, they also are seeking the same thing. Jato mat tato pat. As many opinions, so many paths. As many faiths, so many paths. As Swami Vivekananda said, translating that concept into even more universal terms, that humanity moves from truth to truth, never from error to truth. We don't move from error to truth, we move from truth to truth, smaller truths to larger truths. And so everyone is seeking the same reality. Swamiji said that even the baby is trying to its babbling, trying to express the highest truth. And so that Jato mat tato pat is much larger than it seems. As many faiths, so many paths. No, everyone is seeking in their own way, and everyone will find it in their own way. So we have to learn to leave people alone. We see in Sri Ramakrishna's life, over and over again, he said that God has no limit. You can't put a limit to God. He would ask people like him in the Kotamrita, in the Gospel, so do you prefer to think of God with form or God without form? And him says, I prefer to think of God without form. And Sri Ramakrishna said, well, that's good. But always remember that God is both without form and with form as well, and infinitely greater than both. And so not to put limits to God. And one more thing that we mentioned, among many things that could be listed, but one more thing. Let me say that he taught us to learn to talk to God. Over and over again in the gospel, you'll hear him saying, so learn to pray to God, speak to God, talk to God. That's a wonderful practice. Your own Swami Tathagatanandaji, whom many of you knew before Swami Sarvapriyananda, he used to speak very highly of a devotee that I knew very well in San Diego, Clemmy, a Belgian French lady who died at the age of 102 several years ago in San Diego. She really, I saw her from the time she was around 70 years old when she came to San Diego, the same time I went to San Diego, more or less, to be part of the new center. She came from France, where she was living. And she was already an initiated devotee, but it was at that time that she began to take spiritual life seriously in her early 70s. And her main practice was talking to Holy Mother. Her ideal was Holy Mother, and she would talk to Holy Mother all of the time. And in just an ordinary conversation with us, she would somehow bring Mother into the conversation, everything that she said. And oh, Mother, look at the beautiful sunset. Oh, Mother, look at that. Isn't that lovely? And so just learning to talk to God, she brought Holy Mother into every aspect of her life. And to that, she came to a blessed state before the time that she passed away at 102. So much so that Swami Tathagatananda used to call her and offer her his pranam. And he would tell people who are going to California, you please go to San Diego and meet Mother Clemmy. So just by learning to talk to God. So let me go on to the final Sangha and say a few words about that. Sri Ramakrishna was the Dharma, was the Buddha, the enlightened being who left himself. He is the Dharma, the embodiment of the teaching, and he was the Sangha, or he is the Sangha. Sangha meaning the community. So in Buddhism, you take refuge in the Sangha, that is the Buddhist Sangha, the community of the devotees of Buddha, including the monastics and the laity. And so what is the Ramakrishna Sangha? That's all of us and many, many more. It's all of us. The Ramakrishna order is the monastic order which Sri Ramakrishna inspired and in an informal way established. Swami Vivekananda formally established it. But the Sangha is much larger than that. The Sangha is all of us, all of the men and women who are inspired by the ideals of Sri Ramakrishna. We are the Sangha, and that is what Sri Ramakrishna also has left us. So what is the difference between a Sangha, a community, a spiritual community, and a crowd? There's a vast difference between a spiritual community and a crowd. Both are made up of many people, but a vast difference. One thing is that a Sangha has a common ideal which holds them together. A crowd at a football game, say at the Super Bowl, that's a crowd, and they're there all to watch football, but there's not much more of an ideal than that. The ideal is to be entertained by watching football. And but a Sangha has a common ideal. A spiritual community has a common ideal. And that ideal for us, the Ramakrishna Sangha, is the ideal of Sri Ramakrishna. Whether that ideal for us is personal, where we worship Sri Ramakrishna as a person, as a personal embodiment of the infinite, or whether it's the teachings that he stood for. Swami Vivekananda said that anyone who wants to lead a monastic life and holds Sri Ramakrishna as their ideal, meaning the embodiment of their highest ideals, is fit for belonging to the monastic order. Whether they think of him as a great guru, a saint, an incarnation of God, all of that, he said it doesn't matter. But if they hold him to be the embodiment of their highest ideals, their highest conception of spirituality is embodied in Sri Ramakrishna, then they are a part of they can be a part of the Sangha. And so a common ideal and a common purpose that goes along with that ideal. That is the purpose of attaining to that ideal. So we have a common ideal, we have a common purpose, which holds us together. And because of that, we have love for one another. We have love for one another. The further we go in spiritual life, the more we'll find that we begin to love those who love the same ideal as us. We love everyone, we should love everyone. But when we meet someone who has the same ideal as we do, then we feel that we've met their dearest brother and sister, that they're not strangers in any sense. So yes, we should have love for all, but there will be a special wave of love for those who have the same ideal. And yes, we are human beings. And so it's true. We will find sometimes certain people and people at certain times annoying. That's just the truth because of the personal chemistry. But behind that annoyance that we may feel from time to time because of a certain, why does he always do that? Why does he always do right at the wrong time? He has to do the same thing. Those kinds of annoyances, behind all of that, we feel a generalized love for those who love the same ideal. And so that love for one another, the community of the Sangha, and the recognition of each other, the sense of recognizing someone when someone comes and says, oh, I love Sri Ramakrishna. I've read this and I've read that, and I am so attracted to Sri Ramakrishna, then we recognize them as our own. We begin to recognize them as our own, and we begin to feel a desire to serve them, to help each other on the path. So the Sangha. So we come together for community. So another difference between a Sangha, a spiritual community, and a crowd is that a Sangha lifts all of us up, whereas a crowd often brings us down. But a spiritual Sangha, it lifts us up. It uplifts the members. So now let me conclude so that there's time for question and answers, and say that another way of looking at the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, consistent with what I've just said, but another way is to think Sri Ramakrishna is the new Buddha, the image of the enlightened soul, the great illumined teacher. And Swami Vivekananda is the Dharma. He is the Dharma, the one who gave Sri Ramakrishna's message to the world in terms which the world needed. Sri Ramakrishna lived this wonderful life, accumulated this tremendous spiritual power, but Swami Vivekananda gave it form and direction. If Sri Ramakrishna could have done everything by himself in that one incarnation, there would have been no need for Swami Vivekananda, Holy Mother, and others. But he brought Swami Vivekananda for a reason, and that's because Sri Ramakrishna, his mind was so identified with the divine, so immersed in the divine, everything reminded him of the divine. And so he was not able, because of the heights of his mind, not because he was incompetent, but because of the heights of his mind, to think about the world situation and what humanity needs in detail, the historical situation, the problems of India, the problems of the West, etc., and how to ameliorate the problems of the world. That was Swami Vivekananda's task. Swami Vivekananda, in his vast mind, was able to look at the world, look at India, look at the world, and see the problems, the history which had led us to the present age, and what was needed to lead us into the future. And so Swami Vivekananda gave direction to that power which Sri Ramakrishna had brought. And we should always remember that Swami Vivekananda said that Sri Ramakrishna had come for the welfare of all. He didn't come just for his devotees. He came for the welfare of all. And so Swami Vivekananda always said he was afraid that that power Sri Ramakrishna had brought to earth would be locked up in the confines of a temple and controlled by priests. So he used to say, don't allow this place, meaning Belur Math, as well as other centers now of the order, don't allow this place to become a Thakur Badi. Thakur Badi, a Bengali expression, which means a temple with a deity in it, where there's a priest who does the worship. You bring your offerings, the priest gives them, and the priest comes and gives you prasad, and you feel blessed. Well, that's good. It has its purpose and everything, but that was not what Sri Ramakrishna came for, to have his power locked up in a temple where it could be dispensed by a selfish priesthood. He came for the welfare of everyone, not just for the spiritual, not just for the spiritual. He came for everybody, came to uplift everybody. And so, again, Swamiji was the one who looked at the situation of the world and saw what the world needed and gave direction to that tremendous spiritual power which Sri Ramakrishna had done. So Swami Vivekananda is Sri Ramakrishna's Dharma. And then Holy Mother is the Sangha. Holy Mother is the Sangha. She is the community of believers, the community of those who worship, I don't like the term believers, but the community of those who hold Sri Ramakrishna as an ideal. All of those, wherever they are, whatever they are, who hold Sri Ramakrishna as an ideal. It was her love that brought the order together. It was her love and her spiritual authority that supported Swami Vivekananda when other disciples, monastic and lay disciples, thought that Swamiji had gone astray and was teaching something contrary to Sri Ramakrishna's teaching. It was Holy Mother who said, no, it's Sri Ramakrishna himself who is speaking through Swami Vivekananda. I see it. So it was her love and her wisdom that held the order together. It was her prayer in Bodh Gaya, when she saw the Buddhist monks living in community, that she prayed to Sri Ramakrishna, "Oh Master, oh Thakur, there are enough of the traditional type of sadhu wandering around begging for their food with no place to stay. Don't let my children live like that. Let them live together. Let them live together, supporting each other, provided with food and shelter." And so it's believed that the Ramakrishna order came into being because of her prayer. But the larger Sangha as well, the community of monastics and the devotees, was held together by her love. So Sri Ramakrishna is the Buddha, the enlightened one. Swami Vivekananda is his Dharma, and the Holy Mother is his Sangha. And the last thing, let me say, and then if there are any questions, I'll take those. Sri Ramakrishna, and I'll use the Sanskrit terms, excuse that, but I'll say it first in Sanskrit and then I'll translate. Thakur, Sri Ramakrishna, is the sadhya, the goal, the ideal. Swami Vivekananda is the sadhana. He's the practice which leads to the goal. And Holy Mother is the adhara, the support, the container which holds the whole thing, the process from beginning to end, the love of the Holy Mother. So Sri Ramakrishna, the sadhya, the goal towards which we move. Swami Vivekananda, the sadhana, the practice which takes us there, and Holy Mother, the adhara, which supports the whole process. So with that, let me close, and I believe if there are a few minutes for question and answer, I'll be glad to address those.
Questions can be asked via chat, or you can just unmute yourself or raise your hand. So Swamiji, there's a question in the chat from Cordelia.
Yes.
How do we develop longing for God?
How to develop longing for God? That's a very good question. And the basic answer, well, let me say that one answer is everything we do in spiritual life, any spiritual practice we do, is the way to develop longing for God. Longing for God comes by thinking about God. Sri Ramakrishna used to give the example of the more you handle fragrant flowers, the more the fragrance begins to adhere to your hands. And so the more you deal with the idea of God, the more devotion develops. And so if we do some prayer and or meditation and or worship every day, that is, interact with God through meditation and or prayer and or worship, interacting with God, we read something, a book about God, like a book on Sri Ramakrishna or the Holy Mother, Swami Vivekananda, or of other religions, but read some holy book every day, do some act of engagement, prayer, meditation, worship, and then during the day, from time to time, as we can remember to do it, turn our minds towards God. The easiest way is, which people tend to do anyway if they have any religious sensibility, is when we're in difficulty. And that's okay. We want to learn to turn our minds to God when we're not in difficulty also, but at least do it when you're in difficulty. I had a professor or a teacher that was in high school in the 10th and 11th grade, a biology 1 and biology 2 teacher, Mr. Rhodes, who was an atheist. And he used to tell us about people, we knew he was an atheist, so we would ask him about why he was an atheist and all of that. So one day a student asked him, "Mr. Rhodes, do you ever pray?" And he said, "Yes, I do pray." He said, "But Mr. Rhodes, you're an atheist. Why and to whom do you pray?" He said, "Well, I don't know, but when I'm in great difficulty, when I'm in anguish, I can't not cry out and ask for help. Who I'm praying to, I don't know, but it's a spontaneous action." And so even an atheist prays in times of anguish, much to their own chagrin, and most are not as honest as Mr. Rhodes and admit it. But yes, let difficulties turn our minds to God, and gradually let our good times turn our minds to God, so that when we experience beauty, let us think of where it comes from. It comes from God. It comes from you, Thakur. It comes from you, Mother. You are Satyam Shivam Sundaram. You are the true Satyam Shivam. You are the good. Sundaram, you are the beautiful. Wherever there's beauty, it's a ray of your beauty that is shining through. So let us begin to see that. Okay. Any other questions?
Swamiji, Bill is asking, what about the Sri Ramakrishna Panthi?
Sri Ramakrishna Punti, that's a poetic text written in Bengali. And I have to admit that that's not a text I have studied. I don't say that with pride. I just say it out of honesty. It's not a text I have studied. I've read parts of it, but I've never been all the way through it. I know Bengali fairly well, so I can carry on a conversation. I've even given halting public talks in Bengali. But reading poetry in another language is the real test of your knowledge of that language. And so trying to read the Punti in Bengali is difficult for me because of the poetic language, just as reading formal poetry in English is hard for a non-English speaker. So I've heard that it's beautiful. Many people love it. There may be some inaccuracies in it, but those inaccuracies are not so important. It's a beautiful expression. I haven't tried to read the English translation just because I would like to read the Bengali and really don't have the Bengali to do it.
Swamiji, next question is from Peter Dawkins. He's asking, you talked a lot about praying and being devoted to Sri Ramakrishna. What about prayer and devotion to Holy Mother? What if someone prefers to pray to Holy Mother?
Very good. Very good. When you pray to, if you like Holy Mother more than Sri Ramakrishna, don't ever think that Sri Ramakrishna is in a corner thinking, why is that person praying to Holy Mother? Doesn't he know that I'm here? Why is he not praying to me? No, among Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, and Swamiji, there's zero jealousy. They saw themselves in each other. So if you're praying to Holy Mother, you are praying to Sri Ramakrishna. You don't need to pray to Sri Ramakrishna separately. If you love Sri Ramakrishna more, but you're not so attracted to Holy Mother doesn't mind. She's Ramakrishna Gata Pranam, Pranama Priyam. She was one whose whole life was identified with Sri Ramakrishna. She loved to hear his name. Her whole mentality was colored with Sri Ramakrishna. So if you pray to Sri Ramakrishna, she's delighted. If you pray instead to Holy Mother and aren't that attracted to Sri Ramakrishna doesn't care. He, sitting within the heart of Holy Mother, is receiving your prayers as Holy Mother. And if you don't like either Sri Ramakrishna or Holy Mother so much, but you like Swami Vivekananda, then Ramakrishna and Holy Mother are delighted. Because unlike us, they have zero jealousy and they see themselves in each other. And if you don't like any of the three of them and you pray to Jesus or to Buddha or to Allah or whomever, they are not upset by that either. They see themselves in all spiritual ideals. Swami Vivekananda said that Sri Ramakrishna and I, Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna and I didn't come for name and fame. It doesn't matter whether anybody recognizes us. We came to give, and that's where it ends, giving to the world. And we give it freely without any expectation.
Swami, the next question is from Krishnamurthy Vishwanathan. Thank you for that model of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I want to thank the monks of Sri Ramakrishna Mission and Order, especially for carrying out Swami Vivekananda's instructions, that is, breaking away from the typical mores of conventional religion and inspiring us to spirituality. The whole reason many people like me have a spiritual life today is because of the forces that Sri Ramakrishna set in motion.
Same here. Very beautifully expressed, and I'm the same case with me. Eternal grateful.
Can I ask questions?
Yes, Parikshit.
Yes, Parikshit.
Swamiji, Thakur said one place that I don't like when people say, sometime in the future I will attain, my goal. I want something like a fire, like something has to happen right away. So how can we get that kind of a strong, yes, longing is necessary, but how can we not just wait and, forever to achieve the goal,
Yes, that's a good question. So Sri Ramakrishna would say that some people say, kale hobe, in time it'll happen, it'll take its own time, I'm not in a hurry. Once I met, the first Indian I ever met was on the Queen Elizabeth sailing from England to New York in 1968, into the summer. And finding out he was Indian, I told him that I wanted to be a monk. And he said, well, that's very good, but I'm taking the easy path. I'm going to enjoy the world, amass wealth, have a good time. And when I'm old, I'll retire, I go to the Himalayas and spend my time in meditation. Well, there are two things about that. One is that it shows how deep in the Indian mind that idea is of eventually we should turn our minds towards God. But it also shows that how easy it is to delay that. First, I want to have a good time. And then I'll do that later. And so if we do that, it probably doesn't come later in retirement if we're not preparing now. So the yearning that is needed to attain God, that we can't fake and that we can't artificially stimulate. We can only build it gradually. And so the fact is that spirituality does happen in time, and it only happens with the time factor. But what Sri Ramakrishna wanted was, if you want to be a spiritual aspirant, don't think that, well, kale hobe, in time this is going to happen, it'll happen of itself, so I don't need to do anything now. No, start now. Starting now, whenever now is. If now is when we're 15 years old, good. If it's when we're 25, good. If it's when we're 65, good. If like Clemmy, it's when we're 75, good. Whenever now is, start at whatever age we are, then start. But don't think that in time, everything is going to happen by itself. No, it happens because we decided, okay, now I've got to take the bull by the horns and I've got to start. So we don't just get longing because now I've decided to start, but it's by starting that the process begins. And so the time factor is always there, and Sri Ramakrishna wouldn't deny that. But what he didn't want was for people to think that it's going to happen of itself, so I don't need to bother. No, we have to bother.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? You can unmute yourself. Dan?
No, okay. Well, I think, Swami, we have taken up enough of your very precious time, and we are very, very grateful for it. And just speaking for myself, and I think for others, you've given us a lot of takeaways to think about, and we do look forward to seeing you again very soon, and hopefully in person, and pray that you stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you to Swami Sarvapriyananda again for his kind invitation, Diane for her facilitation, and Prakyat and all of those who helped. And thank you for all of your attendance and for seeing so many known faces that I love and cherish. And I do indeed hope to see you all in person.